The Wisconsin State Assembly debated the budget on Tuesday, and Democrats hoped to prove Republicans were gutting public education.
Instead of actually giving more funding to education, the Republican Party is relying on gimmicks to make it look like we are funding education, but we are keeping funding at flat levels.
To undermine the education governor by providing almost no new money to classrooms and have them be laying off teachers over the next 2 years as a result of this budget.
Ridiculous claims considering the reality is the budget provides the largest increase in education funding in state history. According to the nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau, the Republican budget gives public schools an additional $679 million in state taxpayer funds and $2.6 billion in federal recovery funds, all for a grand total of about $3.3 billion in new education spending.
This budget brings historic funding to education.
This budget puts money into mental health and increases the program, doubling the program. And on top of that, we can't forget the ESSER funding that we got. So with this budget, this budget, on top of that, we're getting the ESSER funding. It amounts to almost $2,800 per pupil statewide.
Apparently, this was too much for Democrats to stomach. When Speaker Robin Vos explained how the Republican budget restores two-thirds funding and that it was a Democrat who ended it in the first place, they resorted to these childish antics.
Who was the governor that repealed the two-thirds funding requirement?
I'm pretty sure that was Democrat Governor Jim Doyle.
Gentleman from the 63rd.
So, Democrat Governor Jim Doyle repealed the two-thirds funding requirement. He was, I won't call him a loser, that's only you, that would be very rude.
The debate lasted until about 10:30 at night. In the end, 4 Democrats crossed the aisle to vote with Republicans, the first bipartisan budget in over a decade. Lawmakers warn if Governor Evers vetoes the entire budget, it could cost Wisconsin's public schools over $2 billion in federal funding, and Evers would be the one gutting public education. For the McIver Institute, I'm Bill Osmolsky.